everything is not.
Hey everyone, welcome again to the Fun, Love and Money channel. Thanks a lot for tuning in. For those of you who haven't seen my previous videos, I'm going to talk to you today around the topic of racism and racial prejudice. I'm not somebody who likes to refer to other people's stories or the media. I'm going to talk to you about my particular story of being born in London, particularly in Chiswick in West London. And for those of you who haven't seen my previous videos, that's a very affluent, white, middle upper class area in West London called Chiswick. Beautiful area, very picturesque, lots of beautiful, nice houses. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is the kind of racial prejudice and stereotypes that I faced growing up in Chiswick from having Persian parents and having a Persian background. Okay, so first thing I wanted to talk to you about is I'm sure these experiences are not particularly isolated and particularly things that I've faced. I'm sure anybody around the world who's grown up outside of their ethnic group has kind of faced these kind of prejudices and these kind of things growing up, going forwards. So I was born in the late 70s in Chiswick, and for those of you who are interested in the history of Iran, in 1978, 79, I can't remember the exact date, the Shah, who was the former leader of Iran, was deposed and replaced by the Ayatollah Khomeini. So Iran, previous to the revolution, was regarded as a very modern, very advanced, forward-going, westernized Middle Eastern country. So kind of very similar to what Dubai is regarded as today. So it was a very popular holiday destination, very oil rich, very glamorous, had lots of glamorous restaurants and clubs and bars. And if you search on YouTube, anybody who is Iranian, I'm sure you'll know. And then that was replaced in the late 70s by a religious Islamic theocratic government led by the Ayatollah Khomeini. Having never been to Iran, even though my parents are from there, I was born in the UK, never even actually been on holiday there or visited there. I would love to at some point, but various circumstances have kind of stopped me from being able to go there. I can't say either way which is correct or which isn't correct, but what I can say from personal experience is that the majority of Iranians in the UK that I've spoken to are not in favor of the Ayatollah's regime. So stereotype and stigma number one is that they associate that all Iranians are in the mold of the Islamic Republic of Iran's theocratic government supporting the Ayatollah Khomeini, which is very far from the case. Other stereotypes that people tend to have is that we have arranged marriages. Now, again, I can't speak for every single Iranian Persian, but I can tell you from anybody in my family, nobody has had an arranged marriage. So talking about myself, I was previously married to a Welsh British lady. I'm currently in a relationship with a Polish lady called Gosha, who you've probably seen in some of my videos. My parents are of mixed religion origin. So my father is of Jewish origin and my mother is of Muslim origin. My brother is currently in a long-term relationship with a English-British girl. My cousins are all in relationships with British people, and my aunts have married a mix of British, Turkish, and Iranian husbands. So again, I can't speak for everybody, but I can just speak for my immediate family, and I can tell you that that's not the case. Also, we were, as children, encouraged as part of a certain branch of Persian culture, is going back to the days of the Persian Empire, is that you're encouraged to marry within the area that you live. And this goes back to the ancient Persian Empire, where the Persian Empire would occupy places in Africa, places in Asia, places in Europe. And it was very much encouraged that Persians that were there would mix with the locals and intermarry with the locals. That may be the reason why it's encouraged for a lot of Persians to marry within the area that they live and not stick within their own community. So that's one of the stigmas that we've always had. Another one is that we don't drink alcohol or we don't party. Again, very, very, very wrong misconception. Majority of Persian people I know, I mean, some people do drink to excess, but yes, we do like music, we do like food, we do like to party, and we do like to have a drink. So regularly we would have kind of parties where we would have music. There's Iranian nightclubs, there's Iranian bars, there's Iranian restaurants, all of which you can go into and you can have Iranian food, which I would highly recommend if people haven't tried it. And you can get yourself a drink as well. We go to regularly to one in West Ealing called the Star and Scorpion, which I would highly recommend. Anybody who wants to go there and get some good food and get some nice drink, you can do that. So that's another misperception around that. So I had a funny joke with a friend of mine, and we were going to go to an Iranian club in London, and he was absolutely convinced that you couldn't buy alcohol there. So we actually persuaded him to drive on the grounds that we couldn't have alcohol, and he drove and he wasn't drinking, but we were. So it was his silly perception mistake. Other ones that kind of come to mind is that every Iranian is Muslim. Again, this is another misconception. So as I've mentioned with my father, in Iran and in Persian history, because the Persian Empire was so big, it encompasses people of lots of different religions. So you have Christians in Iran and Persia that presumably from Russian origin, Georgian origin, Azerbaijani origin, Armenian origin. There's a huge Armenian diaspora currently in Iran. They're Iranian Armenians, they're Christian. You have a huge Jewish population. Again, that goes back to the time of the Persian Empire when the Jews were supposedly, according to stories, taken by Cyrus the Great to Iran, and they settled in Iran. So again, another misconception is that everybody in Iran, everybody who's Persian is Muslim. So yeah, so these kind of things are kind of the more milder misconceptions that people have. Other misconceptions that people have is that Iranian women, Persian women, are very much under the thumb and very dominated by their men. Okay, so I've had sort of people say to me, "Oh, don't your parents want you to get a little Iranian woman who's very like submissive?" Again, from all of the Persian women I've met, I can tell you that the culture tends to be more of a matriarch culture than a patriarch culture. And what I mean by that is that Middle Eastern women, generally on the whole, Iranian women, I can say from personal experience, tend to be very chopsy, tend to be very direct, do not come across in any way, shape or form as submissive and obedient, and a Muslim wife that has to walk, I know, is it 5 paces, 10 paces, whatever, behind their husband. And I mean, I think it's a bit of a silly one. Again, all Iranian women wear a burqa. I had a really funny conversation with a work colleague of mine. So at the time I was dating a English girl, and we were on a work conference, and I said to my colleague, "Oh, I need to give," I'm not going to mention her name, "a call." So he was like, "Oh, her name's," because she had a very British name, "where's she from?" And I said, "Oh, she's English." He was really surprised. And his answer to me was, "Oh, has she converted?" It didn't twig to me. I was thinking, converted? Convertible car? What was this guy talking about? And I genuinely didn't like, the penny didn't drop. And I said, converted? He said, converted to what do you mean converted? He goes, converted to Islam. And I thought, I'm going to have a bit of fun with this guy. So I said to him, "Oh, yeah, she's converted." And what was funny was a lot of my colleagues that had sat at the table had actually met her, and we'd been out together and stuff like that. So I thought, yeah, she's converted to Islam. And I know he actually said, "Is she converted to Muslim?" So I used the term Muslim. I said, yeah, she's converted to Muslim. And he was like, oh really? And she's learning Arabic. That's another misconception people have about Persians, by the way, that we speak Arabic. We don't speak Persian. Anyway, back to the story. So he was like, "Oh, she's learning Arabic." And I was like, yeah, she's learning Arabic. And she's reading the Quran. Really? She became really interested. And he was saying, oh, what do your parents think about it? And I was like, oh yeah, you know what it's like. You know, my parents were like, initially they weren't happy. And then, but afterwards, you know, when she started to convert and things, at this point, everybody, the majority of the people on the table had met her, were starting to snigger. And he didn't realize they were laughing at him. And then he was saying, so she started wearing a burqa. And I was like, yeah, she wears a burqa. And then I think he realized at that point that I was taking the piss out of him and he wasn't really happy about it. But there you go. That's a few funny stories about wrong ethnic stereotypes. And my take home from that is I've traveled around to lots of different countries around the world. And I can tell you that the most beautiful thing I've seen when I've traveled around the world is not the differences between people and races. It's actually how similar we all are. And also growing in London, and there's lots of sort of issues around London being multicultural and how it's such a bad thing. And you can see that there is no one shoe fits all for any race or any religion or any type of people. I mean, there are Muslim girls that are very liberal, makeup, hair, dresses, bikinis, go to the beach, but they're of Muslim heritage. Same as Christians, same as Jews, same as black people, Indian people, whatever. So one of the beautiful things about life in the world, and for those of you that have traveled, isn't the differences, it's actually the similarities. And you could go to Egypt, you could go to Africa, and everyone's got the things that they enjoy, things that they don't enjoy, problems with their wives, problems with their kids, problems with work, good stuff that's happening, bad stuff that's happening. So that's a big take home. So try and take the initial stereotypes off when you're interacting with people and try and look at things with a fresh perspective. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Love you all. Bye. Mwah.